Hi guys, welcome back to We Should Talk, a pop culture interview series from In the Know. I'm your host, Gibson Johns, and today on the podcast we have Tracy Tutor from Million Dollar Listing Los Angeles, which is back for season 14. We recorded this interview in the week leading up to the premiere, so that's why we only talk about this first episode. But Tracy and I kind of previewed the whole season. There's a lot going on, and this season, which is her fifth, is sort of an adjustment for the show. It had kind of grown to, I think, like 6 cast members, but between last season and this season, we've lost the Brits and Fredrik. So now it's just 3 people. It's Tracy and the Joshes, Altman and Flagg. And I'm excited about that change. It's the first time they've had 3 cast members, just 3 cast members on the show since season 6. But I think that, those earlier seasons of the show, you were able to get a really nice balance of learning a lot about the private lives of these people, but also getting a lot of the real estate, and it's ultimately a real estate show. So I like that balance, and I'm glad that we're back to that. So I'm really excited for the season 14 of Million Dollar Listing Los Angeles, and I was really excited to get some time with Tracy. I think she's a total pro, total rock star, and I've loved her ever since she joined this show. So we got into it all, the changing housing market. We talked about Josh Flagg's divorce and how she was there for him and her caught between him and Bobby, what it's like just having 3 people on this show, where her daughters fit into it all. We mentioned it all, we talked about it all, and I just had a really great time with Tracy, and she was very generous with her time. So keep listening for my interview with Tracy Tutor. Tune in to Million Dollar Listing Los Angeles on Bravo, and please rate, review, and subscribe to We Should Talk on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so we're here with Tracy Tutor from Million Dollar Listing Los Angeles. Season 14 is here. Tracy, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited for you and the Joshes, because it's kind of like a new iteration of Million Dollar Listing Los Angeles. It's a smaller cast this year. We're going to see more of you guys. I feel like you get more screen time. How is this experience different for you? This is your 5th season on the show. So how did that this smaller cast affect things for you?
Well, I didn't even think I'd last 5 years. So I'm honored to be here. And it was funny. I was on my way home from New York yesterday, and on the plane, they were airing the old seasons. And I caught a glimpse of my first season, and I was tripping out because so much has happened in 5 years. And season 10 being on, and that being, what I was going through back then to now, I just feel like a lifetime has happened. And so it's exciting for me. It's exciting to kind of do a season where I feel like they get to know a little bit more about our personal relationships between just the 3 of us, even, which we historically have never done. So it's just, I'm pumped. I've seen the first episode, but outside of that, I'm watching it with everybody else, and this new way of doing the show, and the team at World of Wonder and Bravo just said, like, let's go for it. But we still want to bring the obvious things that we love. Obviously the real estate is still there. The competition is all still there. But it's also a little bit more than that. We went through a lot together this season. Good, bad, roller coasters, ups and downs with divorces, friendship, you name it. We air it.
Totally. And that's a cool moment of reflection that you got to have just by kind of happening on the reruns that were happening. Is that moment of reflection kind of more surreal, like from a personal perspective or from a professional perspective, or a combo of both for you?
I think it's a combo of the both. I think I'm sitting on the plane, and it's so mortifying when, like, someone's sitting next to you and you're like, I am watching myself. I hope you just don't recognize.
It's like tomorrow I'm doing what? Tracy Tutor spotted watching herself.
But it was a moment of just thinking about that time in my life. And, that was 5 years ago. I was 42 years old. I was entering like this new phase of putting myself out there and, kind of coming into my own in my 40s. And so much has happened between now and then. I'm recovered from my divorce, which obviously has taken a really long time to get there. I have a great relationship with my ex-husband. My daughters are grown. Juliet's driving. Scarlett's like in her prime. They're both like taller than me. It's kind of a flashback of your life. And I'm so grateful to have it, because it's something that I can look back and watch and just see the growth over the years. It's really a tribute to, the last 5 years of what's been going on in my life.
I love it. I love it. And I'm excited for this year too, because I feel like, I mean, you and the Joshes each individually are all huge stars. Like there's enough star power to go around on this cast still, even with just three of you. But I'm wondering if like, because you're all like you mentioned the competitiveness, and you're all very competitive people, and that's I think partially why you all are also so successful. And you're all at Douglas Elliman, and I'm curious like what it is the fact that there's three of you, you're all at the same place. Does that increase the competitive nature of this season, or is it similar to what we're used to?
I think we're working together a little bit more. I mean, you've seen the first episode, so you have a little bit of that sneak
Oh
peek,
yeah.
obviously, into, listen, at the end of the day, when you've been doing this as long as we have, you win some, you lose some. So there's a little bit of that. But also, when you're at the same company and you have an opportunity to go out for listing appointments on different special properties, and then you say to yourself, listen, I could do this on my own and hopefully succeed. But I could also work with a friend of mine who I trust that brings something else to the table. And that's been, I think, a cool part of what we've done this season is, we've been a little more selfless, which is
Good.
tough
Love
in,
that
in
for you
our in
guys.
our world
Yeah.
to share the wealth a little bit is obviously something that's tough to do, but I've enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed like co-listing and working with them more. It's been fun from that aspect, and we're all very different agents.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
And from the trailer, it seems. Do you co-list with Heather at one point this season? Is that something that we're going to see?
I do. My first co-list with Heather. I mean, I have to tell you, I've always loved Heather and I've always enjoyed her, but it was really more as being Josh's wife, because my friendship and relationship and working relationship was always with Josh.
Through him, yeah.
And seeing her more and working with her on a co-list was a really fun experience. And I think over the season and spending more time together, I have a little love affair. Not gonna lie.
I love
I love
it.
that girl.
I love that, especially because I mean, as we see a lot of the time in these realms, it's so easy to pit two women against one another. So to see you guys working together and so
Yeah,
successfully and having fun together, that's great.
I mean, but that's always been my MO. I'm like girl power
Oh
all
yeah.
the way. And so I don't believe in competition like that. I believe in like lifting each other up, and celebrating each other's successes. And that's been fun. But working with her and getting to know her more on a personal level, we've always had fun together. But she really had my back this season, and vice versa.
Could you see her ever kind of leaning more into the show and being more of a cast member on the show? Would you see
Well, I
that?
guess you're going to see a little bit of that this season.
Okay,
She is more involved. I mean,
good.
she's the CEO of the Altman brothers now. So there's no way to deny her existence as a strong ass female working in real estate. And I think in the past she's always been sort of pictured as his wife that sort of dabs in it at
Right.
it. And it's like, no, she's been selling real estate as long as everybody else. But, she was raising two little babies and now she's coming back full force. So I'm happy for her.
Love it. That's amazing. So with the smaller cast, we don't have the Brits around. Fredrik is not around this season. I see from looks on your faces how you feel about both those statements. But can you put that into words, the feeling of not having those three people on the show this year?
Everybody has sort of a different take and relationship with the other cast members that have been on the show in the past. And my relationship with the Brits, although David and I have our history of arguing, I love those two guys a lot. And I think they're just really stand up, great agents, but that also have good hearts. And they're not, like in this business, there's definitely some snakes,
Right.
and,
I'm sure.
and they're not those guys. So I do miss them. And he was both of them were the first to call me, and James texted me and wrote when I posted about the show airing on December 8th, cheers and congratulations, let's go. And so to have that kind of support from them meant a lot to me. As far as Fredrik goes, there's not a whole lot of love lost there. I'm not going to lie. I wish him the best. But, we definitely had some challenges in our friendship on the show, both on and off the air. And I know Fredrik's always going to do incredibly well in real estate. But I think the chemistry between Altman and Flagg and myself kind of speaks for itself.
I think so too. And I think that it was an interesting test, I think, last year to have him really kind of entrenched in it, but I kind of almost thought it was kind of a distraction from what the LA version of this show does best.
Right. And I think when you have that many characters, it becomes and it's not a housewife show, right? Like when you put a bunch of women in a room together, it's like, it's just energy from every different level. And that's why the Housewives is so fun to watch. But in our show and what we do, you don't really get to delve into any of our personal lives because there's just too many of us.
Yeah.
This year, you guys will get to see a little bit more of that and just our interpersonal dynamics versus us going out on a listing against each other and fighting about a negotiation. It's like, we're talking about Josh's divorce. We're talking about, Heather coming in and taking over as CEO of the Altman brothers, which no one wants to be their boss. That's a tough job. And I think also with me, the dynamic of having two teenagers in the house and having a younger boyfriend living with me and my ex-husband, there's layers, and
absolutely,
no one's been able to enjoy that or witness any of it. And this season they will.
Good. So let's get into it. So at the beginning of the season, in this premiere, you say that you want to go from 300 million to 600 million in sales for the year, which is where you want to double, and it's like, come on now, you got this.
Well, by the way, but it was like after Josh was like, I did 1.6 million last year, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so mortifying. I did 300. So, but I am a one-man
that's not too shabby. Come on, that's pretty effing good.
I'm a small team of professionals, but obviously, I wanted to do double this year, and then all of a sudden it just started going.
That's kind of what the trajectory ends up kind of being?
Just well, I think you watch us.
The business, right?
Yeah, you're going to watch us start the beginning of the season like the market's on fire. But I always said, and I remember when I sat down for my first interview on the show, I'm like, guys, we're heading for trouble. Like interest rates are going to rise. And both Josh and Josh were like, no, it's fine. We're hotter than we've ever been. I'm like, but I don't see that. I don't see that happening. And then, as you guys know, we shoot this show for 10 or 11 months. So it's not a 4-month get together moment. We will see us struggling throughout the season and have to make a real shift in how we're selling the real estate we're selling.
Mm-hmm. And part of your kind of idea of expanding your business is going into OC, but also you said you go to Texas. I was curious why Texas? Like what do you have connections there, or why was that sort of the first out of state kind of expansion for you?
There's a lot of California movement towards Texas obviously towards tax-free states. And there's a natural progression for Californians to go there. And I had over the course of the last 5 years, probably 5 or 6 people that I know, clients and or friends, that have vacated this state for a variety of reasons. And it made sense to me. So once Douglas Elliman opened office there, I started thinking about it and I said, why the heck not? So I studied to get my Texas license, and we opened offices probably halfway through filming this season. So we're fresh in Dallas, we're opening in Austin, and I'm really excited about it because I love Texas.
Love that for you. And the other kind of thing that happens in this first episode is Josh Altman takes on a listing that had previously been your listing, and he does the due diligence of calling you, and then you say, he kind of should have offered to co-list it with you potentially to kind of put it back out there. Is that something that happens a lot, or can you kind of explain the sort of dynamic of that? Because I feel like the personal part of it comes into that, the relationship aspect of like, what's the respectful thing to do?
Well, let's remind ourselves who Josh is, right? Like, Josh isn't necessarily like Flagg, but when you get to a point in a listing where you recognize you're not having the success on it that you hoped for whatever reason, you're overpriced, you're struggling with the client, and you know that your listing is going to expire soon, you might pick up the phone and call a friend and say, look, the listing is going to expire, which Josh Flagg has done with me on 2 different occasions with a listing he knew he was going to probably lose. And he said, look, if I put your name up for it, will you shoot me a referral fee? And I said, absolutely. And I think in this case, that would have been nice, but it also wouldn't have been Altman. So there you have it.
Okay. So it would have been out of character for him to do what you maybe thought would have been the nice thing.
What I would have done.
Right. Sure. There we go. Okay. So, and will we see the the closure of that situation?
You will.
Okay. All right. And I'm curious to see what that's going to be like.
No, I
Um,
mean, listen, at the end of the day, you win some, you lose some, and I'm a pretty good loser at this point. I've been through this for, I've been selling real estate for long enough that, you can't take that stuff with you. And if you let every single loss listing or loss negotiation take you down, you're not going to survive. And I
hmm.
think, particularly going into 2023, we're going to see a lot of agents who thought this business was all fancy and you could, sort of side hustle and make an extra couple $100,000 a year selling real estate because we make it look sort of easy.
Mm-hmm.
And the truth is there will be a lot of people that will give up their licenses this year based on, how things are going in the real estate market.
Well, I think that's one thing that I respect you so much is like we love to see you succeed on this show. Like you have a breaking sale in this first episode as well in OC, but you also aren't afraid to kind of show those tougher moments from the business side. And I think that that's realistic. And I think there are some other real estate shows that have popped up for the past couple of years that don't necessarily show that the downside or the negative or the failure. You know what I mean?
They're more like, it's like using real estate as a backdrop and
Sure.
doing another kind of show. And I have a lot of respect for that. And that's really fun to watch. But I have always said there's no point in doing this show if I'm just going to glamorize something that isn't actually real and not show the downside and how hard it is and the losing of the listing or, losing out on a negotiation. And it's like you've got that paycheck like hovering and you're going, God, I could just get this done. It's like $250,000 that I could really use. And then it falls apart. Of course, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah. Is that and you mentioned sort of there's sort of probably a type of person that has gone into real estate as sort of a side hustle or thinking it's going to be easy, and those people might be filtered out in the next year or so. Is that something you deal with a lot, that you've noticed kind of an uptick in kind of that a different kind of person that has tried their hand at real estate?
Oh yeah. If you're an influencer and it ain't working out, try real estate.
That's really what that's the feeling you get kind of a lot.
There's a lot of real estate shows on television that glamorize what we do for a living in a major way, and unfortunately that is not the reality. We work on commission. You don't make $1 until you close a deal.
Right.
And I have friends that have been doing this for 10 years that are struggling this year and saying, wow, man, this is going to be a rough ride. 2 years of working on commission and not closing maybe 50% less than you have in the last 5 years is a big hit.
Mm-hmm. Totally. It also seems like this season that one of your daughters is going to be an intern for you this season. And then we also see a moment in the trailer where you're crying with another one of them about like kind of trying to keep up with everything. How are we going to talk to you about sort of the evolution of your relationship with your daughters over the past couple of years, and as they've gotten older and maybe you've been able to talk to them about more serious things or show them this side of the business or something like that? Like, how has that evolved for you in the past several years?
Scarlett, my little one who's 14, is still not involved in the show as much. I think she's at that place and a young teenager, and she's really focused on her writing career and school. So she doesn't participate as much. Now, that doesn't mean those conversations aren't happening off camera, because they obviously are. But Juliet is, she's a junior in high school. She's getting ready to start applying to colleges. She's considering, leaving the country even. And, I've always said, because I took a job when I was 15 years old, that I really wanted her to be able to take advantage of the time that she has here to learn how to have some independence while living under my roof and having the sort of the leeway to fall on your face. Because you can, right? And so I thought it was really important that she came to work for us, and we let her have it. But she liked it. Yeah.
Good. She likes the challenge, and that's a good sign, I feel like, for her work ethic and all that.
I think it's important. I think it's important for kids to kind of understand the value of a buck. We live a very privileged life, and it didn't come without hard work. But these kids have a really beautiful life. And if they don't understand where that comes from or what it takes to get there, then how are they ever going to succeed?
Totally. I think the trailer sort of is built around this, and nobody was really happy to hear about Josh Flagg and Bobby divorcing, but it's clear that you guys are there for him, but also there seems like there's a moment later on when you guys have contact with Bobby and he gets upset about it. I guess, can you talk me through sort of like maybe your first reaction to the news, and then how have you been there for him, and how, like, did you feel like you had to pick a side on all of this? Because you were neighbors with both of them, you know what I mean? So it must be difficult.
I love Bobby dearly, and I think that he's a good person. I think that they were not a match.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, when I was on the plane, that was the season that they got married. And so that was my first season, and I really didn't know them that well at that time. And obviously we grew close after that. Bobby appears on the show this season, and it definitely is going to bring a lot of uncomfortable conversations to the forefront. But I think that, being there for Josh and even Bobby before they made the decision to get divorced, I saw very intimately that it was probably a good decision for them both.
Okay.
I just don't think that Josh really realized how difficult divorce is. I think he thought, and you'll see it on the show, but I really think that he thought that this was like a, get together for a week, negotiate, you can have this piece of art, and then, sign on the dotted line and it's
right.
over. And I was like, girl, you have no idea. And by the way, I'm fairly certain the divorce is still not final. So we're approaching a year from when we started filming. And I think that was a rude awakening for him, but he's managing it as best he can. And so is Bobby. And they've done it as graceful as they possibly can being on television. I was lucky enough to kind of keep that off the show, even though I very much was going through it, during that first season, which, again, watching that back and seeing the scenes that Jason was a part of, it was painful to look at.
Probably a little triggering. Yeah, exactly. Did he come to you as somebody that has gone through a similar situation? Did Josh come to you for any of that advice, or was he really like, oh, this is going to be kind of easy?
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, he definitely confides in both Josh and I early on. I mean, I was one of the first people to know, and I knew it was coming, but I think on the show, you'll kind of see me guiding him a little bit, because I think it was, again, a rude awakening for Josh, and thought it was going to be a little bit easier than it was. And unfortunately, all is fair in love and war. And it definitely gets a little dark, and it's tough.
Well, it seems like he's in a better place now. He's in a different relationship. So it even though it's still maybe going on, it sounds like he's kind of on the other side of it, kind of, at least emotionally, it seems.
Yeah, I think for Josh, and I think women are similar to this. I think much of like the pain and the anguish that it took me to get to the place where I decided to actually file for divorce, that was a lot. It's like once. And I think Josh was a little bit like that. He struggled for a long time in the marriage. So when he finally made that decision, which unfortunately the public doesn't get to see, right? Obviously on his Instagram and on social media, he was out very early with his new relationship. And that can be perceived by a lot of people as, wow, that's a little fast. But what people don't understand is it took him a long time to get to the place where he was ready to file. And respectfully, what he does after he files is his business.
Well, I'm excited to see that evolution of that, because it's we don't know much as just viewers. Tracy, I wanted to end by asking you about your Bravocon experience, because it must have been a pretty wild moment for you. I mean,
Bravocon's crazy. It's like Comic-Con. Which I've never been to, but I'm always like, who are these crazy people that go to Comic-Con? This is like nuts. And then I walked into Bravocon, and I was there for the first one, which was, equally
much smaller,
exciting,
but much smaller.
Smaller.
Yep, exactly.
This was crazy. And I have to say, like, obviously we have our little show, $1 Million Listing, and we've been on for a long time. But these housewives, I tell you, they really go through it. Like, I've never seen anything like it. Like, I've been friends with Kathy Hilton for forever, and they were like chanting her name like she was Lady Gaga. It was bananas.
That's what I was saying. I was like, you'd think that it was like Lady Gaga or Harry Styles walking through, and it's like it's Dorit or Kathy. You know what I mean?
She was like this. It's kind of like it's a trip, but I have to say, there's no other fans like the fans that watch Bravo. They are committed, they are loyal, and they really are invested. And that's why, shows like ours are still existing, and the housewife shows, and they're the greatest fans in the world. Like I wouldn't give it up for a second. I'm super grateful to be involved in it.
It was also just so fun. I think I was at that Watch What Happens live taping, the Legends Ball, when you were all there together. And like, it was really cool to see like you guys there with all the housewives, with the Pump Rules kids, with the Family Karma people. Like it's seeing all of you guys next to each other and thinking about how different all the different shows are, but also how they go together. It's just a cool thing to be a part of. It must have felt kind of really special.
It was a really awesome experience. It was exhausting, but at the same time also exhilarating. Funny story, that night when they did the Watch What Happens things, it was like a maze. They had us in different parts of the ballroom, and they were like, okay, you guys are going to walk up these stairs and go to the seats that are at the top of the stairs to the left. And I'm like, okay, so the third bleacher down, and we're like in the audience, and the audience is like freaking out. And so then they're like, go. And we walked up, and I went up to the right, and then I walked up to what I thought was the thing. And I ended up sitting down like in the midst of like the whole housewife section. And Andy was like, Tracy, you're over here. You're not, no, wrong area. And I was like, oh my God, we have to move.
It wasn't like a Freudian slip, like telling him where you actually want to be. Oh my gosh, I love it. Wait, how have you known Kathy for so long? How did you guys meet?
Oh my God. I met Kathy because I knew Rick from the business. And we ended up being in Vegas together, and her and I gambled on the blackjack table until like 2:00 in the morning, just having like tequila soda.
The dream.
And I just adore her. I've known her for years. She is a hoot. And I know a lot of those. I know a lot of them. I had dinner with Crystal the other night, who I'm crazy about. She's fantastic. They're all good women.
I love it. Well, Tracy, you were so generous with your time, and I'm so excited for everyone to see season 14 of $1 Million Listing Los Angeles. You're great on it, and it's going to be a journey. So I'm happy to have you guys back on TV.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to We Should Talk. I hope you enjoyed the interview. You can find out more about In the Know at intheknow.com. You can follow me, Gibson Johns, at Gibsonoma on Twitter and Instagram. And you can listen to all of our interviews, past and future, by searching We Should Talk wherever you get your podcasts. Hope to see you next time.